What if I told you that this house that you're looking at right here was made by actually inflating it with air? This is a house that's located in Malibu and it's around 6,000 square feet and it's made by Benny Shells Inc. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about how exactly it was made using air and then talk a little bit about the architecture and my overall thoughts on the process and, the architecture itself. So basically, this house here is made by Benny Shells. Has this? It's a membrane that's kind of like a balloon, basically. And what they do is that they place it on the site, they fill it up with air, and it turns into a giant balloon that already has its shape. And then what they do to that is they add reinforcement, they add a rebar to the shape. So they make like a mesh out of metal. And then once that mesh is made, they then pour concrete or shotcrete over it that's sprayed on. And apparently this house here was covered in concrete in just one single day. Other cool thing is that once the house is made, once the concrete has dried, they deflate the balloon and then they're able to pull it out and reuse it for apparently 50 to 100 times. So it's a more sustainable approach. Traditionally, when you build houses, you use something called framework, which is essentially wood that you set up and then you pour the concrete into it if that's the method that you're using. Problem is that formwork is not always reusable and therefore it's very expensive and it takes a long time. So this seems like a good solution to traditional building and architecture. As you can see, this balloon technology allows you to create these cool curved forms, but I don't imagine that it would be easy for it to be able to do anything that's like orthogonal, like your straight walls and flat roofs. Because the thing that's nice about this is that the loads of the actual building, right, the structural loads are able to follow this natural curved form. So that's another plus that it has. You can see right here that this is the front door or possibly the back door of the project. And, everything is kind of fit into it. We do seem to have a custom door there and some custom porthole windows, but everything else seems to be fine. Like they have these large openings and then the glass that goes around it has to be custom made. But then you can pop in some typical doors into it. As you can see, it creates really cool shapes. Now, aesthetically, it's not something that's pleasing to me. This looks like some sort of organism. I'm not attracted to this type of architecture whatsoever. When it comes to aesthetics, it's always a very subjective opinion, and therefore, if I like it or don't like it, it shouldn't influence what you think about it. If you look closely, one thing that really bothers me about this kind of architecture is that the finishes are really crappy looking. If you look at it, it looks like Play-Doh. Like if you've ever tried to make something out of Play-Doh by hand, you know that you're not going to get those nice machine finishes. You're going to get something that looks like it's handmade, right? And that's exactly what's happening here. This has like a certain handmade element to it, but it's not handmade. So it's the equivalent of you manufacturing something, let's say like in a 3D printer, but designing it so that it looks handmade. It's kind of fake. Now, this is not like that because this wasn't made to look handmade. It's just because of you applying something to essentially what is a balloon, you're going to have some weird uneven surfaces on it. When you look at the inside, you still have that handmade Play-Doh looking finish, which I'm not totally into, to be honest with you. But the positive side is that you do have some really cool, unique spaces. So the cool thing about these kind of structures is that you're not going to have your typical homey vibe to it, but you're going to have essentially what feels like you're living inside of a cave. And that's appealing to some, but not to others. As you can see, the door has to be completely custom. I'm sure that this company could create some sort of fitting that would hold a regular door like we talked previously, but at the moment here, we have a very strange pivot door, which I'm not truly fond of, and then a sculpture here that is very reminiscent of deflated balloons, which speaks to how the process of this house was. You can see that one of the biggest nightmares with having design like this is having electrical fixtures. Now, it is totally possible to have integrated lighting into this, but it probably makes it more complicated. And this is probably the reason why they went with this design anyway. It adds a little bit of like a whimsical feeling to the structure. But to be honest with you, I think that it looks more like an afterthought. It doesn't look like it fits into the architecture whatsoever. I'm not happy with this decision, but it is what it is. As you can see, this is just more of the same. And then here we have a different picture. It's cool. I mean, you look at this is fun. Like, you would want one of your friends to have one of these houses so you can like go over every once in a while and just look at the cool spaces. But I don't know that you would want to own one of these. I mean, maybe you would. I don't know. Now, the interesting thing is that if you look at these windows, these are the same. That is because to save on some of the cost, you probably have to have some typical windows replace over and over, and then you can get away with the form factor being a little bit different. This is because windows are expensive. Like, if you look at windows and you just Google how much they cost, you can see how expensive they are. And then if you look at these round windows, they're even more expensive. So if you have just completely different shapes and sizes all over the project, and a lot of them, it's going to get even more expensive. So that's probably why they just add like one or two details here and there. This is what seems to be like the backside of the project. And if you look, those windows are really needed because light is not entering deep into these spaces. You have like these openings that allow sunlight to go in, but the rest of the interior tends to look very, very dark. Look at that. It feels like a cave. Blue really makes it feel like something found in the Smurf village. Now, stuff like this is super cool. You have a little reading nook. I'm telling you, it's very whimsical. It's very unique feeling to live inside one of these houses. And some of the spaces like this, for example, is very grand. Love the choice of furniture here. A lot of these projects that you see, it's like the furniture becomes an afterthought and they just pick whatever the client wanted. Everything was thought out. The colors are great. Everything is amazing. This is the same shot which they included again, whatever. See, here we have some sort of unique window, and this is where cost starts to increase, especially something like this. It's a really odd shape. And then the cool thing is that you have these little shelves that are opening. So I do appreciate that even the walls follow the rest of the design of the project. Here's another shot. Basically, when you have a project like this where all the walls curve, you're going to have custom made moments like you do here, which are not totally usable. They're not spaces like you can't really use that shelf for much because, as you can see, it clashes with the height of the wall. So it's kind of like just something that we're like, hey, let's take advantage of this moment, make this wall pop out a little bit just so you can put some trinkets on there, but it's not totally usable. And also furniture is going to fit in quite awkward in the space. There's no like official corridors. There's no official walkways. It's just like a giant glob of space that you have to kind of deal with. And I'm curious to see what the kitchen looks like because that was probably a nightmare unless if they made like a square, they dissected a square out of this glob and then that's where you place the kitchen. Cool moments like this is honestly very beautiful. I think this project offers a lot of really cool moments, a lot of unusable space. You have something like this. It's very sculptural, but like I said, I don't think it's well, it's obviously not fully functional, but it is definitely interesting. Love the choice of fixtures and the amazing patterns that it creates. They have some pictures here that really don't tell me much. Looks like a giant marshmallow. Cool stuff. Overall, the outside looks fine. The plan is not that great. And this is actually a really interesting shot here of what the bathroom looks like. So, they did a really good job of being able to fit certain things into the architecture. But I laughed because look how silly this is where you have a bench that you can't fully sit straight in. So you're going to have to be hunched over the whole time. And then this is a really cool sketch of the concept. Don't know if this came before or after the actual design. We never know with these sneaky architects. And we have a plan, which I'm not going to spend too much time on just because these plans tend to always be very terrible. But as you can see, we have just a bunch of spaces. We have our little corridors here. So overall, it kind of functions like your ordinary floor plan, like on this side of the house. And then when you look at this side of the house, things tend to get a little weird, like with these bedrooms. I don't want to talk too much about it because this is like something that needs to be experienced in real life. I could sit here and look at these plans and tell you this doesn't work or this does, but obviously we all know that weird angles are very hard to work with, and circles are even harder to work with. So use your imagination. But to be honest with you, it might be that when you walk in these spaces and interact with it might be that the beauty of the space, the feeling of the space trumps the fact that it's not usable. So I don't want to talk too much about that, but I just want to show the kitchen doubt that I had, where you have like a weird service kitchen back here, which is miserable, but the kitchen seems to be fine. Again, I can't talk too much about the plans in this case. And then our elevations are whatever. It looks like stuff that you would see in school projects, to be honest with you. So now overall, what are the pros, right? The pros are that you're saving a lot of money on formwork and you're doing this fast. This is apparently something very fast. And they argue that the shape of it, this natural curved form that they derived from nature, allows a structure to be safer than typical construction. Again, I don't know many people that have a fear of their house spontaneously crumbling on them, so I don't think that's really an issue. I don't think that there's a risk of your house collapsing on you, and that's the reason why they had to find this solution. So I don't totally buy that this structure is safer. But if they say it is, okay, sure. I wonder how well this does in certain seismic conditions. I mean, it's in Malibu. I'm not totally sure how it handles seismic conditions, but I'm curious as to if this can be replicated in parts of the world where you have, let's say, like hurricanes, right? Or tornadoes. Obviously, if something's more curved, it tends to do better with extreme velocities and whatnot. But so it seems to be like a pretty good solution for something like that. Now, I wonder if the fact that it's cheaper and faster to construct because you're basically recycling this inflatable membrane and you're able to create these really cool structures. I wonder if that's offset by the fact that you need so many custom exterior assemblies like these windows. I wonder if that just makes everything equal out. I don't know what to tell you. I'll be honest with you. If you're recycling that fabric, that means that you're basically getting this cookie cutter shell done over and over and over again. And I don't know how appealing that is. You're basically grabbing a cookie cutter house, but instead of it having its shape be in rectangles, you're making it this curved form. So I don't know how fast the novelty of the shape is going to wear off. Essentially what I'm saying is that why would you do this, right? You would do this just because you want to save money and you want your house to be built fast, but then you're spending a lot of money trying to make this work, trying to make all the other stuff work with all the custom stuff that's needed. I would like to see like a spreadsheet to see, option A versus option B. So I don't think they can truly sell it like that. Not to mention that you're not going to get a product that's unique. You're going to get something that's essentially cookie cutter. So how much money are we saving here? I think this is a good introduction to this project. It's one that I want to follow up with and hopefully get more information, more actual like tactile information, and show you guys like, all right, this is how much it costs to build one of these, and this is how much it costs to build a traditional home of the same size. Obviously, the fact that this thing is over 6,000 square feet and they were able to, make the concrete in one single day, that's pretty insane. That's fast. But is it worthwhile? So I don't know. I think something like this is more applicable to maybe like hotels, right? If you can do like small little like hotels out of this, that would work better because you could build a series of them that all have the same floor plan. But I don't really see it working too well with homes, at least not at this level, just because of the fact that it's so cookie cutter. Now, if they're able to make something that's like a more modest design and then replicate that, like maybe a 2-2, let's say, or something that by using this technology, they're able to construct houses that are so much cheaper and then cater to the fact that houses are so expensive nowadays. This could probably be a good solution, but again, I need some actual information, some actual numbers to look at, and that's something that I plan on doing in the future. But overall, as far as architecture goes, there's really not much to say. This is more about the technical aspects about this project. This is a structure that looks cool at first glance, but might get old. There's really not much to say about it beside of that. It is a project that honestly, it excites me. I just want to see where they're going to take this, how this is going to become like, what the next step is going to look like in using this kind of technology for projects. But overall, I'm definitely excited to see more of this. I think it's a super cool project, super cool technique. And as always, I'm curious to see what you guys think about it. So let me know down below in the comments.